What is up, everybody? Matt Gajewski here, back again talking college football. And today we are closing out week 9. All of your requests, the leftover games, the G5 games, anything we didn't cover on the Marquee Show. If you want all that content as well as the Friday night games, you can find them on this very channel. If you do like the content, please consider subscribing or leaving a like. It truly helps a small channel like this a ton. So thank you if you have done that. Last thing, if you or someone you know has a gambling problem, please call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. We're going to try to get our hustle on today. My heat is out, and I live in Wisconsin, so it is cold in here, but someone is coming to fix that shortly. So I got to get my hustle on. Let's do this. Maybe the best game of the G5, certainly this week, maybe this year. South Florida takes on Memphis. It's a 5-point spread. This is moving pretty quick. You're going to see some 5.5s, maybe even some 6s by the time you watch this. The total is 59.5, and the big story with this game is the injury to Brendan Lewis, the Memphis quarterback. So we will start with that. There are some important injuries in this game. He is definitely the most important one. Saw him on crutches. It's a lower body injury. He went into the injury tent last week against UAB, tried to give it a little jog on the sideline. It was an immediate no. This is a quick turnaround for him. So he is the first person to mention, and certainly the biggest injury in the game. They also have Jeremiah Jordan injured, a defensive back. For South Florida, Cartevious Norton's been out for a while now. He'll miss the rest of the year at running back. And Chaz Nimrod missed their last game as well, their number 1 receiver. So it's a 5-point spread, a 59.5 total. To get here, South Florida has been incredibly impressive. The favorite out of the G5 to make the playoff with wins over Boise State in dominating fashion. Another really good G5 team in Boise. They beat Florida. We all know about that game, a rightful win. Florida kind of shot themselves in the foot at the end of the game, but USF still had a 54% post game. Since then, lose to Miami, no shame there. Beat an FCS team, and then they beat down Charlotte, North Texas, and FAU to get here. Memphis, meanwhile, beat Chattanooga, Georgia State, and Troy. That is what it is. Pretty good wins. The main win they have is against Arkansas, 32-31. They only had a 18% post game win expectancy. Arkansas fumbled basically at the end of the game in the red zone to quite literally give Memphis the game. Since then, they beat FAU, and last week they lose to UAB, and they had that, I don't know what to call it, bungled situation on the goal line. Essentially, they have this long touchdown run. They almost score. They get called down at the 1-yard line, immediately get a penalty on the next play. So they're now going in at 1st and goal from the 6th. They get back down to the 1-yard line. They get another penalty, so now they're back at the 6. They end up running like 5 or 6 plays, and they don't score. They do not score in that game to finish it, and then they lose. Now, 28% post-game, they shouldn't have won anyway, but it's still they had the chance to at least tie it at the end, and they messed up. It was a weird game, so it wasn't just Lewis that got hurt, so a lot of people will use that as an excuse. UAB's quarterback was also hurt. They started a backup, so no real excuse in that game. As we get to this matchup, it's just really hard to bet against South Florida, even on the road with the quarterback injury from Memphis, given how good South Florida has been. Byron Brown has been awesome. He's very mobile. The main concern I have with the offense, honestly, is the drops. The offensive line, they returned almost every starter from last year. That unit was really bad. They've grown. They're 40th in pass blocking, 67th in run blocking. A lot of respect for this offensive line. Memphis on defense, they're a team that can definitely be beat. When you look at what this team has allowed, they're 30th in total defense, 9th against the run, 70th in coverage. I wouldn't say it's Byron Brown's best skill through the air, but he definitely has the ability to throw the ball. And if you're going to get back Chaz Nimrod, I think there's a really good chance this team can move the ball through the air. As far as the ground attack, I mean, you look at the offenses that this Memphis team has played. Arkansas got them. That was going to happen. It's an SEC team. But otherwise, it's UAB. They run an air raid. It's FAU. They run an air raid. Georgia State is one of the worst teams in the Sun Belt. Chattanooga is an FCS team. Really, the only team that can run the ball somewhat is Tulsa. And even that, you look at the rushing attack for Tulsa, they're 78th. It's not like they're a great rushing attack. So I do think there are some holes to poke in that side of the ball. Meanwhile, you look at the other side. What do we have if we don't have Brendan Lewis? So Lewis has been awesome this year, but if we have to go to A.J. Hill, he has 25 pass attempts. Somehow in that sample, 1 big time throw, 1 turnover-worthy play. He does not have a rush attempt yet, but based on his high school stats, he looks very mobile. It's just, I don't think we're really going to know until we see him play. So you have a huge unknown there, which is tough to evaluate. the rest of the skill players are pretty good. Greg DeBrassear has been awesome since they got him back from injury. Getting Cortez Braham really late in the process. He was cleared because of a eligibility issue at first. He's back. You have a great offensive line, especially both your tackles. Travis Burke and Chris Adams are awesome for this team. It's a good offense, but now we're kind of removing the linchpin potentially with Brendan Lewis. As far as USF's defense, you can definitely beat it. I will say tougher schedule for them. And you play some SEC teams, you play Miami, Florida. Your defense is not always going to look pretty. And you can see that just in the level of competition this team has faced. But most recently, USF, when they start stepping down and playing their own kind of level of competition, it's been a lot better. They've allowed all of their last 4 opponents below 4 yards per carry and below 6.7 yards per attempt. And that's important. They did play like Drew Mestemaker in there. So I think there's a little bit of room for growth with this team rather than there being a little bit of room for regression for Memphis. With the QB injury, we tentatively side towards the South Florida direction. If you want to bet it, I think you got to take it now. I'm a little hesitant just based on the injuries. We have to see where those come in. If Lewis plays, this likely moves the other direction. I just don't know how likely that is. San Diego State, Fresno State. So maybe the best game in the Mountain West this week. Certainly two teams at the top of it. San Diego State has really impressed. 3-point spread on the road in favor of San Diego State. The total is 47 to get here. Really weird body of work for San Diego State. Beat Stony Brook. They lose to Washington State, who's not a good team. They beat Cal 34-0, beat Northern Illinois 6-3, beat Colorado State 45-24, and then beat Nevada 44-10 before a bye week last week. So they're all over the place, man. And in certain games, they look awesome. Certain games, they disappoint. They've still been able to grind out wins. Even that Northern Illinois game, 75% post-game win expectancy. Now, Fresno, on the other hand, they played a week 0 game. They got beat down by Kansas. Since then, beat Georgia Southern, Oregon State Southern, and Hawaii. Hawaii's not bad. They beat Nevada in their second most recent game before losing to Colorado State last time out, and 9% post-game win expectancy, lost yards per play, 4 turnovers. Colorado State had 0. It's been a weird body of work for Fresno. They're a limited team. Injuries in the game. Both teams coming off a bye, so this might not matter, but Roland Fullwood on the offensive line for Fresno and Ezekiel Avett at receiver. San Diego State's pretty healthy. For the skill players, Jaden Denegal, he's been more than a game manager, which I didn't know he had in his bag. 66% completion, 8.7 yards per attempt, 9 Big Ten throws, 5 turnover-worthy plays, only 7 sacks. The skill players are shockingly good for this San Diego State team, like pretty efficient overall, which I did not expect either. Jordan Napier needs to play more snaps. He's been awesome for this team. Your run game is solid with Lucky Sutton. Your offensive line's not bad. Right now, 57th in pass blocking, 29th in run blocking. That's all pretty good. And the Fresno defense has really struggled. This team comes in 119th overall. Their best unit is their coverage. They're 91st there, which kind of makes sense. You have Hamilton in the back end, who's, I don't know, their stud corner. They expected him to be. He led, I believe, the country in interceptions. Maybe that was the conference. I could be misquoting that. He's still been good, but he has definitely seen his efficiency drop. The only other player who's a difference maker back there is Ryan Wilson. And up front, a bunch of trash outside of Finn Claypool. So you can definitely move the ball on this team on the ground and through the air, which is important for San Diego State. Meanwhile, on the other side, E.J. Warner has been up and down. 69% completion, 7.4 yards per attempt. But the big problem, 6 big-time throws, 13 turnover-worthy plays, 9 interceptions. Also taking 13 sacks. That's a 24% pressure to sack ratio. That's high. So he's not doing his offense a lot of favors. And this is a good offensive line. Even with Roland Fullwood banged up last week and they went to Braden Walton, who's not that great, it was still a pretty good unit. So the offensive line has stood up for the most part. They have an excellent center in Spomer. But Warner still takes sacks when he's under pressure. He hasn't felt that great. And then the interceptions are a problem. Not to mention the drops are also an issue for this team. They're 82nd in receiving efficiency. If you force this team to throw, that's where they've gotten into trouble. Josiah Freeman, Jordan Brown, Jaleel McClain, Avett when healthy. This is just an underwhelming group. There's no way around it. They need to be playing from ahead. They need to beat you on the ground. Donaldson and Luke are awesome. That's how they've beaten down teams. But when they struggle, when Warner has these turnover-worthy plays and these drops, it comes when they're playing from behind. So that's a problem. And it could be a problem in this game. San Diego State's defense, no slouch. They are 11th overall. And the only place that really they're lacking is their pass rush, and they're 62nd there. I mean, Chris Johnson at corner has been electric for this team. I don't know where he came from, but he is awesome. Trey White has been elite off the edge. And it's not just like Chris Johnson. The secondary, everyone is well above average. The weakest link is Eric Butler, who's typically playing their nickel. I mean, my goodness, this team has been stifling. Now, if you want to poke a hole in level of competition, I can see that. They have not played always the best offenses. Like Cal, certainly the best one you faced, and they held Jaron Kiawe-Sagapatelli to 5.5 yards per attempt. And otherwise, who have you played? Like Washington State, that wasn't even with an Eckhouse at quarterback. You played Northern Illinois, who has no offense. Colorado State, I believe that was Jackson Brousseau's first start. And then they just played Nevada, who already benched their quarterbacks. I mean, they played a disastrous slate of quarterbacks who are horrible. That's really the hole I would poke if you want to do that. But I still have been honestly a little impressed. Like the best data point they have is certainly Cal. So yeah, beating Northern Illinois is one thing. Beating Cal is another. I've been impressed with this team. It's probably just going to be a lean at this point. I like San Diego State, but not enough to take. Very excited to watch, though. This is an awesome Mountain West game. Next game, maybe the best game in the MAC, man. This G5 slate is incredible this week. I don't know if this is going to be on TV. I'm crossing my fingers it is. I really want to watch Western play Miami, Ohio. Western Michigan, that is. Miami, Ohio at home is a 1.5-point favorite with a 41 total. My goodness, this is an awesome game. Western Michigan has really impressed. So they go 0-3 against Michigan State. North Texas, a really close game. That was 33-30. And then they lose to Illinois. So kind of to be expected for a MAC team. Since then, they beat Toledo, they beat Rhode Island, they beat UMass, and they beat Ball State. Most of those in blowout fashion, with the exception of Toledo. That was a 1-point game, but they had a 74% post-game win expectancy. They basically gave Toledo most of their points. Western Michigan had a muff punt, a couple red zone turnover on downs. It just didn't come together, so they're kind of lucky to get that win, but they did it. They were the rightful winner. Miami, Ohio followed a similar path. They lose to Wisconsin, Rutgers, and UNLV. Very close in UNLV. They should have won. That was a back-and-forth game. DeQuan Finn got hurt. They lost by 3 points, and they had a 54% post-game win expectancy. Since then, they beat Lindenwood, Northern Illinois, Akron, and Eastern Michigan, mostly by double-digit points. Injuries in the game. John Hofer on the offensive line for Western is named to watch. Kenny Tracy, the Miami, Ohio running backs, out for the year. Deion Colsey at receiver was hurt. Austin Uke, offensive line. Nasir Washington, D tackle. And Caleb Martin at corner. I imagine some of those guys return, but just watch. Part of the reason Western Michigan's efficiency metrics trail a little bit is they did not start Brock Lowry the whole year. They tried to run out a different QB who was horrible. I can't believe they didn't figure out this earlier. But Lowry's been fine. 65% completion, 7 yards per attempt. He mainly wins on the ground. He has 8 sacks, but this is a team that likes to run the ball. DeQuan Finn is pretty good himself. Honestly, 56% completion percentage is maybe a little disappointing. 7.9 yards per attempt, 6 big-time throws, 5 turnover-worthy plays, but he also is a quarterback that wins on the ground. So you have 2 ground-based quarterbacks. And the supporting cast, I think you have to say, favors Miami, Ohio, maybe slightly. But you look at this Western team, they're outside the top 85 in both receiving efficiency and rushing efficiency. I like Jalen Buckley. He's disappointed this year. I never really thought they were going to have a good receiving core, and transfer to Talik Williams has certainly been the most efficient, but it's still not a great unit. And the offensive line, they come in 99th in pass blocking, 96th in run blocking. They've moved a lot of pieces around. I'm not sure we're still seeing the best group so far. Adam Vandervest has been awful at tackle. Chad Schuster's only been a little better. Again, Hofer and Whitenack have rotated at guard. Their best player by far is their center, Raheem Anderson. So that sort of is not the best infrastructure. In this Miami, Ohio defense, I do have respect for them. They come in 75th overall, 118th in run defense, 30th in pass rush, and then 63rd in coverage. You just look at the best players for this defense. It's basically Adam Trick, who is an awesome edge rusher. But they have a decent amount of quality players. Bai Jobe is a former 4-star transfer who's on the defensive line. He's getting more time. He's been banged up a lot. They're okay inside, but linebackers are awesome. Corbin Hunter is a veteran for this team. And defensively, you come in with 3 good starters in your secondary: Coy Beasley, Eli Blakey, and Silas Waters. I do think this defense is probably a little better than they've shown so far. We had this as one of the best defenses in the conference coming into the year. Meanwhile, on the other side, for Miami, Ohio, their skill group I thought would be a little better than this, and they just haven't been that healthy. So Cordell Russell hasn't played this year. Darian Williamson's played 3 snaps. Those are 2 Power 4 transfers. The real one who's played the most is Colsey, and he missed their last game. So that left you with Cam Perry, who's been pretty good. Keith Reynolds, who's been pretty good. And then they started Braylon Islam, who's not that great. So certainly a little shorthanded. The run game, you're probably just moving to Jordan Brunson, who's definitely a slight step back from Tracy, but I don't think that is seismic either. Then you go to the offensive line. So this unit comes in 101st in pass blocking, 62nd or 67th in run blocking. I wouldn't be surprised if they have room for growth, just given their schedule. Drew Terrell's been awesome on the left tackle spot, but once you go inside and then to the right, like Gavin Roars, he's been splitting time with Jacob Skorsh. Eric Smith's been decent at right tackle. The right side is really the problem for this team, but I still think they're a pretty decent offensive line. So can you beat Western Michigan's defense is the real question. That unit comes in 98th overall, 125th in run defense, 89th in coverage. They win via their pass rush. So Nadame Tucker is their best player on defense. And once you get to the back end, things get a little bit worse. They have one good defensive back in Tate Halleck. They're also really poor inside. For some reason, they haven't tried to use other players, and Mustafi Al-Gharari and Marcel Tyler have been real liabilities from the interior. So the edge group is pretty strong. The interior defense is really problematic, and your secondary can definitely be thrown over the top. I think there's more advantages for Miami, Ohio in this spot. I played a 1.5, and I think you could play this through 2. No real issues with the spread. It's going to be an awesome game, and one we do show value on this side. Colorado, Utah. Weird game. Colorado's off a bye. It's a 13.5-point spread in favor of Utah, 49 total. Another thing in this game is injuries. Colorado needed this. They've had so many injuries. I'll run through kind of the laundry list. Simeon Price to Kalen Taylor at running back. Draylon Miller, Hakeem Williams, Terrell Timmons, Isaiah Harge at receiver. Arden Walker, Tavian Coleman on the defensive line. Carter Stoutmeyer, RJ Johnson at corner. Some of those guys will be back. Some of them won't. Utah is really just Nate Ritchie at safety and Devin Dampier at quarterback. They revealed that he basically doesn't practice in the beginning of the week because he's so banged up from his runs. So then you get Bird Ficklin. And this is apparently the first real chance Ficklin might actually play. I don't know, but that would be a problem. So let's start with Colorado. To get here, this team has been a little disappointing. They lose to Georgia Tech. They should have lost. That wasn't even close. Honestly, it was closer than it should have been because of those Georgia Tech turnovers. They beat Delaware. Then they lose to Houston. They willingly started Ryan Staub. That was the dumbest decision maybe a team has ever made this season. Beat Wyoming. Then they lose to BYU with a 70% post-game win expectancy. Just gave the game away. They lose to TCU, 35-21. They had 4 turnovers. And then they beat Iowa State with a 32% post-game win expectancy. In a really, really ugly game. Like 8 of the first 10 possessions in that game were punts. It was a complete mess. So it's been a bit ugly for Colorado. Utah, basically every time they step up in competition, they get beat, and they beat up on all the easy teams. They beat UCLA, the first edition of UCLA, Cal Poly, Wyoming. They crushed Arizona State, who started Jeff Sims, and then they lost to Texas Tech in a blowout against a backup QB, and they lost to BYU last time out in a really ugly game full of turnover on downs across the board. And that's really where I want to start, because we took a total in this game. The pace is around average. Colorado's 82nd. Utah is 61st. So it's not a slow game by any means. But Utah, man, like in this game, there was nearly 800 yards. They had a turnover and down at the BYU 12. BYU followed that up with a turnover and down at the Utah 32. Then Utah had a turnover and down at the BYU 28. They had a turnover and down at the BYU 8 and the 23, not to mention 12 penalties. This game was full of red zone possessions that came up 0, not even just field goals, 0. And the total, I believe, was 49 as well, and it finished at 45. This should have soared over. And that brings me to some of the stylistics. Like, this Utah defense is just flat out not as good as people think. They're 53rd overall, 60th in run defense, 80th in coverage. They're rotating a bunch of stuff on the defensive end. I will say, I think they're fairly well coached. Last week, they played less nickel and use more 3 linebackers, but this is just not that talented of a group. They have cracks, and they've shown it multiple times against quarterbacks that I don't even really think are that good. We're talking backups like Hammond for Texas Tech diced up this team. You have a couple good players like John Henry Daly has been awesome, Lander Barton, and Smith Snowden, but really some weak links everywhere. Now, can Caden Salter and company exploit this? I'm hoping they can do enough because I took it over, but I don't think Salter's been the real problem. 65% completion, 8.1 yards per attempt, only 8 sacks taken. The O-line is quietly very good, especially in pass blocking. They're 4th overall in the country, but they don't have any good skill players. They've all mainly been hurt. A couple 4-stars, but we're talking about really young players, and when you lose guys like Draylon Miller and Simeon Price and DeKalen Taylor, you just don't have a lot behind them. So Colorado's really been leaning on some questionable skill players like Dallin Hayden's back in our lives, Michael Welch, and your number 1 receivers are like FCS transfer Sincere Brown, Omarion Miller, Joseph Williams from Tulsa. He deserves more time on the field, honestly, but that's my biggest question if this Colorado team does their part, because I think Utah does. All you really need is some conversion in the red zone, and you'll get there. Devin Dampier has been awesome, and I think he's going to play. 68% completion. Really, the only time you worry about him is when defenses step up. He's great against lower-level teams, and he can certainly run, but when you start playing, like Texas Tech-level defenses, that's really where he struggles. They're okay at skill position players. They're starting to use 3 backs. I still think Wayshawn Parker's probably their best, but you'll still see Nakari Rogers. They're also using a little bit of a 3rd back in Daniel Bray. Ryan Davis is fine at receiver. That's really all they have there. But great offensive line led by Spencer Fano. And Colorado's defense has been so hurt this year. I'm not even sure they're this bad, but when you're just dealing with 5 or 6 missing starters, 117th is where you come in. And they're awful through the air, 135th. So good pace in the game. It's average at least. I think Utah moves the ball just fine. And then Colorado should be able to do enough against a Utah defense, which comes in around average. Next up. Toledo, Washington State. Weird non-con game. Toledo comes in as a 1-point underdog. The total's 45. I have a good line. I bet this under 49.5. It has come down, but I still think you could sprinkle on this at the current number. Toledo's been a pretty good team. Basically, they have a couple characteristic losses that you're going to see from this team every year. They lose to Kentucky in a close game, week 1, beat Western Kentucky, Morgan State, followed by a loss to Western Michigan. They were technically an underdog, but not by a lot, and it was a 26% post-game win expectancy for them. Since then, they beat Akron, and then they lost to Bowling Green with a 77% post-game win expectancy. That was a disaster to game. Beat Kent State last week. So Washington State, they've changed QBs. Really disappointing start to the season. They barely beat Idaho. They beat San Diego State somehow, and then they lose to North Texas by blowout, lose to Washington by blowout, beat Colorado State, lose to Ole Miss in a shocking game, and then lose to Virginia in a shocking game. Since they made the quarterback change, this team has been shockingly live. They do have some injuries, Jalen Caldwell and Christian Hilborn on the O-line, Ram Stevenson, Max Balloon, and Mike Sanjo on the defensive line. Toledo's just dealing with Chip Trayanum at running back. So it's a tough road spot for Toledo. Tucker Gleason's a good MAC quarterback, 64% completion, 8.3 yards per attempt, 12 Big Ten throws, 6 turnover-worthy plays. We know he can run. Chip Trayanum I think they just held him out because it was Kent State. Like, he should be back in this game. If they do return Chip Trayanum, you have obviously an Ohio State transfer at running back. That's good. Not to mention Junior Vanderos, Trayvon Rudolph. That's a good 1-2 punch at receiver. Your O-line is pretty decent for this team, especially when it comes to run blocking. I think they finally might be benching Stephen Gales too. They played Ibrahim Traore over him in their last game. Maybe that just helped everything because Gales has been so bad. Washington State's 106th in defense. Now they've played a pretty hard schedule. You're talking Ole Miss, and they did a good job against Ole Miss. They played Virginia. Chandler Morris got banged up in that game, but he's awesome. You played Damon Williams. Now they gave up 59 points to Damon Williams, but Drew Mestemaker, like what I'm trying to say is this is a pretty good, almost elite defense, at least as far as opponents faced. Could this defense be a little better? I think maybe. It's full of like FCS transfers. But man, it's hard to evaluate, and I'm not sure this unit is really like 106th overall like they appear because, man, they have played some really good offenses. It's one of the better strength of schedules opposing offenses in the country. So maybe they could stop Toledo. I'm not writing that out. for Washington State, since they moved to Zevi Eckhouse, I don't know why he wasn't starting week 1, but they've been way better offensively. 68.5% completion, 7 yards per attempt, 7 Big Ten throws, 4 turnover-worthy plays, 4 interceptions. He's only taken 9 sacks too. This offense has really struggled because, one, the O-line is limited. They're 118th in pass blocking, 114th in run blocking. First and foremost, that's not getting better. This is a bad offensive line. We knew that coming into the season. They don't really have any skill players. This run game has been woeful. They've tried to change running backs, like going to Kirby Voorhees. It hasn't mattered. They've tried to make some shifts on the offensive line. It hasn't mattered. They have one good player. That's their center. Everyone else is a disaster. This is a horrific offensive line. And you don't really have any receivers. They didn't recruit anyone. They added one transfer, which was Jeremiah Noga. He's awful. Joshua Meredith, him returning was the biggest thing they got out of the pass game. It's basically him and Freeman because you don't have much else. I don't think this offense has a lot of success in general, especially against a pretty good Toledo defense. You look and see where they come in. 6th overall, 7th in coverage. It's like the 5th time this happened this morning. No chill in Milwaukee, man. No chill. People can't keep themselves under control. Anyway, Toledo's defense. Awesome unit overall. Like Emmanuel McNeil-Warren is going to get drafted at safety. He's in a lot of mock drafts pretty high. Andre Fuller's awesome at corner. 2 good edge rushers. I don't think Washington State has a lot of success scoring against a good defense. That's held some good teams in check. Meanwhile, Washington State's defense, again, I think is better than what we saw through the first couple games, largely just because of opponents. So we took an under in this game. As far as pacing goes, it should be pretty slow. Washington State's 130th, Toledo's 91st. So we'll bank on this. If you still want to play a 45, I think you can. Maybe you can wait and get a better number closer to kickoff. UMass, Central Michigan. A lot of love to the MAC. UMass, 16-point underdog, Central Michigan. To Central Michigan. The total's 46.5. We took an under in this game as well at 47.5, so this one's a lot closer. And it starts with pacing. Central Michigan's 132nd in both pass rate and pace. Central Michigan ran 5 pass plays last week. Yes, you heard me, 5. Now, UMass plays fast, but this offense is so bad they just can't sustain any drives. This team has lost to Temple by blowout. They lost to Bryant, FCS Bryant, by 1 point. They got blown out by Iowa, Missouri, Western Michigan, Kent State, and most recently Buffalo. Now, Buffalo was by far the closest game they played, 7-point loss, but still a 14% post-game win expectancy. Buffalo had a turnover on downs at the 35 and an interception at their own 48. That kind of limited some possessions. Meanwhile, Central Michigan's looked fine. They beat San Jose. They lose to Pitt. Wasn't that close. Blown out by Michigan. Beat Wagner. So you basically have 4 outcomes you kind of expect. Once you get into MAC play, beat Eastern Michigan, lose to Akron somehow, and then beat Bowling Green. The main thing with this team is they need to play from ahead because they don't pass the ball and they have a lot of questionable quarterbacks. Starting, I guess, with injuries, Central Michigan's center, John Iannuzzi, and one of their edge rushers have been out, but that's not enough, man. Like, even with Joe Labas and Angel Flores, this is still an offense that probably moves the ball on UMass. So Labas is your clear passing quarterback. Flores leads the team in rushing despite missing some time. They have a pretty good rushing attack, and this team runs a weird offense. They're like using a fullback more than almost any team in the country. And then their receivers, they don't get a lot of really any volume, I guess I should say. But you have 3 capable running backs in Townsend, Biggins, and Cornish, a pretty good offensive line. They're better in run blocking. They're rotating a ton. So it's hard for me to really say. I don't think it's an elite unit, but I think it's definitely better than UMass, who is 126th in defense, 103rd in run defense, 133rd in coverage. It's just flat out not a good team. So I do think Central Michigan has some success on offense, but really, more than anything else, they're limited upside-wise from a scoring perspective because of what they're trying to do. This is a very slow and run-heavy team. God forbid they get down in games, then they're live to get blown out. But I don't think UMass has that firepower. This team is so hurt. Okay. Brandon Rose, quarterback. Rocco Griffin, running back. Jaquan Gibson, receiver. He's questionable. Tyree Kelly, receiver. T.Y. Harding, receiver. Sullivan Weidman, offensive line. Mal Glynn, offensive lineman. The best linebacker, Timmy Hinspeter, got hurt in their last game. Ryan Barnes, D.D. Snyder. Like, who is playing for this team? A.J. Hairston has been at quarterback recently, 48% completion, 5.1 yards per attempt, 10 sacks. Part of that is, so the infrastructure, my goodness, 42% pressure rate. Receivers have a 13% drop rate. What are we doing? The skill players are 129th in receiving, 130th in rushing. Offensive line, horrible. Central Michigan's defense is 86th. It's not a good unit, but it's definitely not bad. Better in coverage, slightly weak up front, but can UMass take advantage of this? Probably not. And being better in coverage definitely is a bad matchup for UMass, who is the 18th ranked passer in the country. We bet an under, and that is where we will stay. I think you could debate Central Michigan. My biggest hesitation would be their offensive philosophy. TCU, West Virginia, 15.5 point spread in favor of TCU. We took a 14.5 a couple days ago. Total's 56. West Virginia is just a disaster, man. This team beat Robert Morris and Pitt somehow. Then they lose to Ohio in non-con. They get really banged up, and since then, blown out to Kansas, blown out to Utah, blown out at BYU, and that game was only as close as it was because West Virginia scored in the final minute and a half to make it a 14-point game, blown out to UCF last week. Meanwhile, pretty decent body work for TCU, maybe a little disappointing. They beat North Carolina, Abilene Christian, and SMU in a pretty close game, lose to Arizona State, blowing a 17-point lead, beat Colorado, and then they most recently lose to Kansas State before beating Baylor. So it's up and down for this team, but mostly up. And they're certainly the better team compared to this West Virginia team. And it's the same thing. These injuries, like what was this West Virginia team supposed to do coming into this game? Nico Markiel and Jalen Henderson are out at quarterback. Khalil Wilkins is questionable at quarterback. Could be on a fourth stringer. Their only good player on offense, Jaheim White, out for the year. Also losing Ty Edwards behind him. Receivers, best receivers done. Jaden Bray, losing Christian Hamilton and Oren Singleton behind him. Some of your better offensive linemen, Tykees Crawford got hurt on defense. Hammond Russell and Ashton Woods are hurt. They're rotating like every defensive back. What a mess. TCU's Jeremy Payne at running back, Joseph Manjack at receiver, Ed Small at receiver, Ryan Hughes on the offensive line, and Cade Bennett on the offensive line have been hurt. But I mean, I don't know how this team doesn't really score at will. You look at the West Virginia defense, 115th in coverage, 93rd in run defense. One thing TCU did in their last game to kind of mask the receiver injuries was use more 12 personnel. Run the ball more with Kavorian Barnes. They may well do that. Kavorian Barnes has had a good season. The offensive line is actually much better than it was expected to be coming into the year, too. They're 55th in pass blocking, 55th in run blocking. No, it's not the upper echelon of the Big 12, but it is good enough to beat West Virginia. And then Josh Hoover, the real problem with him this year has been 14 turnover-worthy plays. Now, he balances that with 16 big-time throws. He is the embodiment of your gunslinger quarterback this year. Doesn't take a lot of sacks, and the receivers, they've been up and down as well. 8% drop rate's not fantastic, but you've seen the big plays from Dwyer, McAllister, even Manjack when he's healthy. This team should move the ball at will against West Virginia. And then who is playing quarterback for West Virginia? Khalil Wilkins. If he plays, I mean, he at least can run. If Scotty Fox starts, my goodness, man. So both these quarterbacks are below a 50% completion percentage. And then Fox has just some dastardly, 45.5% pressure to sack ratio. Holy smokes, is that bad? Now, he shouldn't be playing. He's way too young to be out there. Receivers are awful. Running backs are awful. Mentioned all the better ones are hurt. There's just not anything you can do. And then this TCU defense, first of all, it has a pretty good defensive line. They're 11th in run defense and they're 49th in coverage. What are you really expecting to do in this game? I mean, I just think this is a team that's kind of stone dead walking in. You kind of are towing the line with how motivated is TCU in a game like this, but I'm not even really sure it matters, man. We're taking TCU with the points. I'm definitely worried about this West Virginia team moving forward. TCU has some awesome defenders too. Devin Deal, Nnamdi Obiezor, Caleb Elam's or Bud Clark, of course. I mean, I don't know how they score, man. This could be bad. We're laying the points with TCU. SMU Wake Forest. SMU's a 3-point favorite. This might go to 2.5. Wake has taken money. The total's 53.5. I don't really understand it. Injuries, there's not a ton of them. Justin Medlock and Jalen Davis Robinson for SMU, two defenders, a linebacker and a DB. Wake is off a bye, which definitely helps them because they didn't have Robbie Ashford or Falili Fa'amo in their last game, quarterback and offensive tackle. Both should be back here. And SMU had to play Clemson last week. Jennings continues to get banged up, but he plays through it. So that environmental stuff kind of favors Wake. But man, personally, I just think SMU is an infinitely better team than this Wake Forest team. SMU just beats Clemson, a little bit of asterisks, no Cade Klubnik. Prior to that, beat Stanford in a blowout, beat Syracuse in a blowout. Both those teams are awful. They lost to TCU in a shootout, beat Missouri State, lost to Baylor in a shootout with a 51% post-game win expectancy. So it hasn't all been good for SMU. Hasn't all been good for Wake either, who's played a way easier schedule. They blew out Oregon State. They beat Virginia Tech by 7 points, Lost to Georgia Tech. They actually should have won that game. It was 30-29. They had a 78% post-game. They lost to NC State, beat Western Carolina, and beat Kennesaw by 1 point. So it's okay. It's not great for a body of work. Kevin Jennings is just so much better than Robbie Ashford, man. 69% completion, 8.3 yards per attempt. The real problem is the 10 turnover-worthy plays. He also has taken 13 sacks, which is a little high, but receivers haven't helped him a ton, 7.5% drop rate. There should be better days ahead for Jennings. He hasn't run a ton. I know he's been banged up. And they're getting nothing out of their rushing. I mean, like, this rushing attack is outside the top 120 this year. I don't know how it got so bad moving from Brashard Smith to like TJ Harden, Chris Johnson, Derek McFall, because this offensive line is really good. Really good. They've trimmed some of the fat. Like, Savion Byrd has not been a full-time player in every game so far this year. They've started to use a little bit of Chambly behind him. I hope they continue to do that because Byrd is by far their weakest link. Everyone else is a stud. PJ Williams is awesome. Bates and Nichols on the inside, great offensive line. And because of that, you have time to throw the ball. So you have these long developing route concepts, and you see Brinson and Hudson, long touchdowns. Even like Jalen Cooper earlier in the year, he's kind of taken a backseat recently. This team can really put it on you if you can't pressure the QB. Now, can Wake Forest do this? I mean, maybe they're 30th in total defense, 22nd in pass rush, 30th in coverage. So everything looks good on paper. And if you told me like Wake Forest, what's their best skill? I'm saying their defense for sure. But who have they faced? Like, this defense defended Kennesaw State, Western Carolina. The best data points probably beating CJ Bailey, 6.3 yards per attempt to him. Otherwise, like, Haynes King runs the ball well. Haynes King has not had a good year passing. Kyron Drones, Malik Murphy. Maybe I need to give these quarterbacks a little more credit because, I mean, like, some of them are pretty good, but I'm not as impressed with this defense, especially on the back end. I do think if you want to beat Wake Forest, maybe the best thing you do is run on them, but it's definitely not going to be easy. This Wake Forest defense is certainly impressed. As far as the Wake Forest offense, they're always going to be limited with Robbie Ashford under center. He's a dual threat quarterback that's limited passing. His completion percentage is below 60%. It's just kind of what you get with him. This is not a new thing. We've seen him for a while. They have one good receiver in Chris Barnes. He doesn't even play all the snaps. Sterling Burkhalter, Micah Mays, Carlos Hernandez have all come in well below average. Damon Claiborne has done a lot with a little. It doesn't always look pretty with him. He's also battled injury this year, but honestly, a little surprised he's been as efficient as he has with some of the weaknesses in the O-line. The O-line has been bad, but it's a unit that I thought was going to be horrific. So they've actually overachieved. They had two players retire at the beginning of the season that we expected to start, and they still have come in 38th in pass blocking, 122nd in run blocking. Again, I thought it was going to be catastrophic, and it's actually been mildly okay. The SMU defense is kind of underachieved, especially on the back end. When you look at how this unit is comprised, their best players have all been up front. Like, I think their four best players on the year: Cameron Robertson, Isaiah Smith, Jeffrey Emba, and Terry Webb. That's four defensive linemen. You were supposed to have these two maybe All-American safeties and Isaiah Nokobia and Ahmad Moses. Especially Nokobia, has not been that good so far. Now, they kind of even this out with like Deuce Harmon stepped up. Marcellus Barnes has been okay. So they're kind of a well-rounded defense. I think you just can beat this team over the top. Fortunately for them, Wake Forest is not a efficient passing attack. So I think it lines up really well for SMU. I'm probably going to play this. The reason I haven't is it just Wake Forest is taking money. And to be honest with you, Wake Forest is not really a team I think is any good, even going back to the preseason. So we'll wait on this. We'll see what SMU goes to throughout the day. Tennessee, Kentucky, a request. Tennessee's a 9-point favorite. The total is 55. So far, Tennessee's looked awesome. Even against Alabama last week, the only real blip on the radar came right at the half when they threw that pick six, 90-plus yards. Tennessee is a defense that's limited. We'll get to it, but it's just like when you have an error like that, there's just no crawling yourself out of it. There was basically a 14-point swing. Prior to that, they beat Arkansas, beat Mississippi State, UAB, lose to Georgia in a game they should have won at a 76% post game. So Pretty good showing for Tennessee this year. Impressive. I didn't think they were going to be any good. They've been better than I thought, especially Aguilar. Kentucky beats Toledo, and they played a lot of close games, man. They lose to Ole Miss by 7, beat Eastern Michigan, lose to South Carolina, lose to Georgia. They look better than I thought. And then they lose to Texas in OT with an 84% post-game win expectancy. Kind of a weird run out. So with this Tennessee team, they're limited on a defense because of injuries. Jermon McCoy, Ricky Gibson are out for the year. Those are the 2 best DBs. Arian Carter also missed our last game at linebacker. Allegedly, Seth McGowan is questionable for this game at running back for Kentucky. That really matters. And let's start with Tennessee's offense. Dynamic passing attack only struggles with the drops. 13% drop rate. Joey Aguilar, 64% completion, 8.6 yards per attempt. Can you imagine what this would be if they weren't dropping passes? And some of them have been horrific. They've had tip passes that turn into interceptions. Get this. 4 turnover-worthy plays, 6 interceptions. How is that possible? Tip passes. Still, I think you have to be impressed with Bishop. They run the same 3 receivers every play because they're not deep. It's Staley, it's Matthews, it's Brazel. They're unique and they're hard to defend. And the offensive line is quietly 7th in pass blocking, 86th in run blocking. This was supposed to be a weakness. It has turned, if not into a strength, this is an above average unit. And the Kentucky defense, this is definitely where you want to beat this team, but they are definitely weaker in the secondary. So first of all, you got to be able to pass protect. Josephs is awesome off the edge. Tennessee has the bodies to protect. Then if you can do that, you can throw the ball over the top. This Kentucky defense is 109th in coverage. And a lot of that just because this unit, they've lost year over year. This team as players get drafted in the secondary. You lose a lot. Your best player, Terrion Nichols, Ty Bryant, but you have weak links. John Keys Hardaway has not lived up to expectation. Even Jordan Lovett in the nickel, Quashid Scott has had to play more. You've been able to throw the ball in Kentucky if you can protect long enough. And I think that will be the case with Tennessee. Meanwhile, Kentucky's offense quietly has been a little better. Gotta say, Cutter Boley is an upgrade on Zach Calzada, really no questions asked. The only thing with Cutter Boley, 30% pressure to sack ratio. We gotta cut down the sacks, man. 14 sacks, 8 turnover-worthy plays. He's playing like a young kid, and it's his second season. I get it. He's still a 4-star. But, man, we need to take fewer sacks, throw fewer interceptions, maybe just have fewer drop passes, too, would help. This receiving corps is awful, though. They're not getting any better. They don't have Troy Stellato for this game. It shouldn't matter. Fred Ferrier is questionable. Their best player is Kendrick Law by a mile, the Alabama transfer. Hardly Gilmore is second. Macklin is okay, too. But it's just not going to be a good unit. Their running backs are pretty good. Seth McGowan, Dante Dowdell. I hope McGowan plays in this game. He certainly is a difference maker. And the O-line is around average. Now, Tennessee's defense has shown cracks. We mentioned the vulnerabilities for them in the back end with their injuries. Tennessee's best asset is their pass rush with Josephs. Even beyond him, this unit has and they're healthier now. They had a ton of defensive tackles hurt earlier this year. Now you can go to Tyree West, Jordan Ross, Dominic Bailey, Bryson Eason, Jackson Moy is back. Devlin Hobbs is back. A lot of those guys were hurt. It's a tough unit up front to beat. And if you can stop them, you can throw the ball over the top. It's just not Kentucky's strength. In this contest, you kind of need Kentucky to do enough if you want to play anything. We lean over in the game, largely just because pace is good. Kentucky's not playing as slow as you'd think. They're 68th, and Tennessee, under Heupel, is playing at the speed of light. Probably not going to play anything, but that's where we lean, and that's the breakdown for the game. Temple, Tulsa, a couple other G5 games to get to. This one's got me in a pretzel. At first glance, I want to take Temple. I dive in and look at the numbers. I think Tulsa might be underrated. In this game so far, let's do resumes first. Temple beats UMass, blowout. Howard, blowout. They lose to Oklahoma and Georgia Tech, both blowouts. They beat UTSA by 6. UTSA is not very good, and they only had a 48% postgame, so that's a little concerning. They lose to Navy by 1 point, 46% postgame win expectancy, and they had every chance to win. Temple missed a field goal and fumbled at the Navy 17. Last week, they blow out Charlotte. So I like this Temple team. I love their new coach. They look good a lot, but I also think they have some incomplete body of work. Basically, you have 5 irrelevant games, blowouts one way or another, and then 2 games that were coin flips against Navy and UTSA. It's kind of hard to evaluate. With Tulsa, they beat Abilene Christian, lose to New Mexico State by a touchdown with a 56% postgame win expectancy. Basically, 2 turnover on downs in New Mexico State territory, 2 interceptions, and a missed field goal. That's how you lose. They got blown out by Navy. Then they come back and beat Oklahoma State with a 46% post-game win expectancy. Even though it's Oklahoma State, it's a P4 win. Lose to Tulane, lose to Memphis, lose to East Carolina. That was expected to happen in all 3 games. The bad thing is they did not even cover against East Carolina. So kind of a weird body of work. Injuries, Ryder Cush for Temple at tight end, Eric King at left guard. Sekou Chroma was listed questionable on the edge, and he only played 8 snaps. For Tulsa, it's Mekhi Miller at receiver and Cam East. At quarterback, Evan Simon. For Temple, he is a 62% completion, 7.7 yards per attempt, only 2 turnover-worthy plays, no interceptions, has taken 11 sacks, but you're just not seeing him really have any negative plays. And that's led to a lot of opportunities for the skill players. This team is actually top 50 in both receiving and rushing efficiency, which is a big surprise to me, but I guess I shouldn't be that surprised with the Keeler coaching staff coming in. But Jay Ducker's been a difference maker at running back. And the offensive line is not horrible. If you have all the starters in the game, especially if King returns, it's 5 above average starters. Now, I won't say this unit is elite, and that's evidenced by the 49th pass blocking, 16th run blocking, but definitely good enough. Now, the thing is, Tulsa is 6th in total defensive efficiency. Their worst unit is their coverage at 43rd. So Tulsa's been awesome. Now, who has Tulsa played? They beat up on Logan Fife for New Mexico State. Navy runs the triple option. Navy had success as well. They played Zane Flores for Oklahoma State. They did a decent job against Tulane's Jake Retzlaff, and Brendan Lewis got him for 8.9 yards per attempt, followed by Caden Hauser at 7.9. Basically, this Tulsa defense is overachieved, but a lot of their early season is doing the work, and they've shown cracks enough to get beat in these games still. So I'm still not really buying the 6th-ranked Tulsa defense overall, especially when you can throw the ball over the top of them. The problem is, can Tulsa throw the ball? I don't know why they're doing this. They are starting Baylor Hayes. He's been downright awful. 59% completion, 6.2 yards per attempt, 3 big-time throws, 10 turnover-worthy plays, only 3 interceptions, 29.5% pressure rate. I just don't know why they're not starting Kirk Francis. It doesn't make any sense. Best unit is bad skill position players. They're 115th in receiving, outside the top 70 in rushing, and that should be a strength for them. This team overall has a lot of really good transfers at the running back position. Dominic Richardson's from Baylor. Sevion Morrison's a P4 transfer. He hasn't played this year. H.A. Allen, he played everywhere. Miami, Nebraska. And Balin Presley's playing a lot for this team too. Their receiving game is awful. Mekhi Miller's been out. I think that actually might benefit them. He's been terrible. Mekhi Tease has been banged up as well. He's the Texas A&M transfer. Maybe if he plays at full strength, they have a better receiving unit. It just hasn't always come together for this team. And probably because their quarterback holds them back. And then finally, their offensive line is 102nd in pass blocking, 125th in run blocking, which they're rotating both guard positions. It's just not a good unit. Temple's defense is 60th overall, 87th against the run, 51st in coverage. The only thing I really have a question with, they're starting to rotate all their DBs. So going back a couple weeks, like Lewis Fry and Javier Morton were both hurt. And since they came back, they actually got really good play to like Dante Pollard and Jameer Jones. They outperformed Morton and Fry. So I don't know if returning those guys is the best case scenario for this defense. It's hard to say. They're at least deeper. And then on the edge, like Cameron Stewart's been a baller. And I think this Temple defense can actually stand up to what Tulsa has offensively. Maybe that says more about Tulsa's offense being awful. But you look at the quarterbacks this team has faced. Mateer, Haynes King, they did what they were going to do. They did a good job against McCown. And, of course, they did a good job against Charlotte. But Blake Horvath and Navy, that was a competitive game. They did enough, I guess I should say. So I'm torn on this game. The model likes Tulsa plus a 5. I can see how it gets there. I think Temple's a better team just on paper. So when there's this disagreement, rather than try to outsmart the model, I think I'm just going to stay away and watch this game. It's going to be a really exciting G5 clash. Last up, I think UL Monroe Southern Miss. This game is a 12-point spread. Bet Southern Miss at the 12. The total's 50. UL Monroe, they've been battered. They just got blown out by Troy. They got blown out by Coastal Carolina and Northwestern in the 2 games prior. Their wins this year are St. Francis, UTEP, and Arkansas State. And they lost their quarterback. I don't know if he's going to play in this game. Aiden Armenta definitely got banged up. And it looks like the rumor is Landon Graves is going to make his first start. Landon Graves has 13 pass attempts, and he's completed 46% of them. He does look somewhat mobile, but we just don't know. And Armenta has not been a real difference maker, so this is something to monitor. They also had Braylon McReynolds get hurt again in their last game, their best running back. Rico Powers left the team at receiver. Kalium Coswell in the offensive line was limited. Tay Woody, defensive tackle. Corian Wilson at corner. It's been sort of a messy month for UL Monroe. They don't have the best skill position players either. They're outside the top 65 in rushing and receiving, and they could be even worse. Remember, McReynolds, he's basically the best skill player this team has at running back. So that could be a really big loss if he can't go. They also didn't have Tyler Griffin in their last game. He played very limited snaps. He's their best receiver on paper. It's just been chipping away at this unit slowly but surely. Offensive line's actually pretty good for this team. They've had a couple injuries here as well, but overall, you look at their body of work. AJ Vincent's been good. Jay Mickle, Elijah Fisher, they should all be healthy. That gives you an excellent left side. The right side might be a concern if Coswell can't return, but honestly, it's a pretty good infrastructure. What the offense struggles with is just their skill players. Now, the defense for Southern Miss, I think, is pretty decent. It's been vulnerable at times, but they still come in 9th overall, and their weakest unit is probably their run defense. So that is definitely what UL Monroe would prefer to do if they can. And if they have McReynolds, maybe they can take advantage of this. But you look at the Southern Miss defense and who they played. This team opened up against Mississippi State. This team has played some quality opponents this year and stood up pretty tall. So I have some concerns overall with this Louisiana Monroe team able to move the ball. Outside of that, J.C. French didn't have much success. Georgia Southern, they played a backup for Louisiana Lafayette. Gavin Wimsatt, Caden Creel didn't do much. They're not really a pass-first offense anyway. Louisiana Tech's Blake Baker did hit 11.4 yards per attempt, which was a surprise. And then on the ground, most teams are below 4.5 yards per carry with the exception of Jack State. So it's been a pretty good defensive runoff for Southern Miss. I'm not sure Louisiana Monroe, with all these backups, has the ability to score at will on this defense. Meanwhile, Southern Miss, and Louisiana Monroe did have 4 turnovers in that game against Troy. It might have been closer if that didn't happen. So to Southern Miss, lose to Mississippi State, then beat Jackson State, App State, a loss to Louisiana Tech by 10 points, beat Jacksonville State, beat Georgia Southern, and then beat Louisiana. Pretty good run out for this team. They already cashed their win total. Their quarterback's Braylon Braxton. He's awesome. 66.5% completion percentage, 8.1 yards per attempt, 18 big-time throws, 9 turnover-worthy plays, only 8 sacks. Like the skill position players for this team, it's basically all transfers. But you look at the body of work of this unit, you have probably 6 guys you can use at receiver. I mean, you go down the list, Carl Chester, Braylon Brown's former 4-star, Elijah Metcalf, Micah Davis, a lot of them transfers from high-level competition. Jeffrey Pittman, he's from an SEC team. Matt Jones is from Ole Miss. Robert Briggs, they don't use him a ton. He's from Utah State. It's a very deep offense. And the O-line is not bad. I wouldn't say this unit is the best. Coming 16th in pass blocking, 94th in run blocking. Weird imbalance to it. But overall, good center, Broderick Roman. They should be able to move the ball in Louisiana Monroe, who comes in 65th in defense. They're 85th in coverage, 48th in run defense. But if you need to throw the ball over the top of Monroe, I think Braxton can certainly do that. Really, the players you worry about, Dylan Howell's good on the edge. And then Marcus Ross and Noah Fleming are okay at linebacker. Really, the problem is the secondary, and they're unsettled there, haven't really found a nickel. David Godsey is their best player back there, for sure. So it's kind of TBD. But if you have a good passing attack, you can definitely move the ball on this team. So we played a Southern Miss minus 12. I think that number's fine. Armenta, good chance he misses this game, which would leave you additional value. But that'll do it for us today. Thank you guys for watching. If you have any feedback or just want to support, leave a like and a comment. It helps a ton. Otherwise, thank you for watching. We'll see you again next time. Good luck. Have a good weekend.